All right, everyone, welcome to the first time that we bring the Massachusetts 2023 Boys State and Girl State programs together. While we'll formally meet each other at this evening's convocation ceremony, we have every day you'll have these Gen Ed lectures, for lack of a better term, where we get together and there's different speakers who are here who come to see you just to talk for a little bit, share their thoughts, and then there's always times for questions at the end. So if afterward you have any questions for whoever the speakers are, there are microphones in the middle of the aisle here. Feel free to get up and ask your questions. Again, this week is what you put into it. So if you want to get involved, that's how you're going to get the most out of it. If you have a question, ask it. You're not going to have these opportunities in many locations where you have this many people who come here just to make sure that you can better yourself and get a different education that you may get somewhere else, and something different than what you would get in your normal classrooms. Again, there's a reason why you're here, so get the most out of it, because a lot of people are here just for you this week. If we haven't had the pleasure of meeting each other yet, my name is Mike Nicholson. I'm on the Boys State staff. I attended Boys State in 2011 and I've been on the staff since. And then during the rest of the year, I'm one of the lucky 47 individuals in Massachusetts who get to be a mayor of a city here in Massachusetts from the city of Gardner. Some of you are my constituents, both in the crowd and on the staff. So if you have any questions throughout the week, please feel free to find me. We'll be happy to answer those. But it's my honor to introduce to you all our guest speaker for this morning's general education series. Representative Jeff Roy is a native of the town of Franklin, Massachusetts, and serves the people in the 10th Norfolk District, comprised of Franklin and 3 precincts in the town of Medway. Representative Roy has worked in various levels of government and in different branches as well. His career began in 1986 as an attorney in the town of Franklin. In that capacity, he represented clients before the New Hampshire Supreme Court and Superior Court, the Federal District Courts of Massachusetts and New Hampshire, the Rhode Island Superior Court, the Colorado Superior Court, and the United States Court of Appeals for the First Circuit. In 2011, he was elected to the Town Council in Franklin, and in January of 2012, he was selected as the chair of the town's Master Plan Committee. Prior to that, he served on the school committee and served as its chairperson for 9 of his 10 years of service on that board. He also co-chaired Franklin's anti-bullying task force. He was elected to the General Court, or as we refer to it sometimes too, the House of Representatives in Massachusetts in 2014, and was appointed to the chairperson of the Joint Committee on Telecommunications, Utilities, and Energy in 2020. He is the House Chair of the Manufacturing Caucus, which promotes and encourages making it in Massachusetts. On top of all of this, he's a cyclist in the annual Pan Mass Challenge event, raising money for the Jimmy Fund, and has been riding the 192-mile route from Sturbridge to Provincetown annually since 2003. He's someone who I've had the pleasure of working with and calling a great friend and colleague. Ladies and gentlemen, Representative Jeff Roy.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for that kind introduction. And I see in the room that there's a palpable amount of energy here. You having a good time? It's only your second day. Who's having a good time? Anybody having a bad time? Keep your hand down. First, I want to say thank you for the kind invitation to be here today at the Massachusetts Boys State and Massachusetts Girls State. I'm so excited that over the next several days you're going to study democratic values, improve your knowledge of government, and learn what it takes to be active citizens. And I'm thrilled that each and every one of you have chosen to be here, and you've chosen to explore these topics and have chosen to be community leaders. As you know, and I'm sure the lectures pointed it out to you this morning, government is the system by which a society is organized and governed. It is responsible for providing essential services such as education, healthcare, and infrastructure, and it also plays a role in protecting our rights and freedoms. In a democracy like ours, government is of the people, by the people, and for the people. That means that we as citizens have a say in how our government is run. We can vote for our leaders, and we can hold them accountable for their actions. That's why it's so important for you as young people to get involved in government. You are the future of democracy, and you have a voice. You can use your voice to make your community a better place, and you can use your voice to fight for the things you believe in. I understand that the Boys and Girls State programs have produced a president, senators, congresspersons, governors, and leaders in the business and nonprofit worlds. It's my sincere hope that the lessons learned through your time here will give you an idea about how you can be the next one. No matter where you are on your journey, I encourage you to keep going. Government is important, and it needs your voice, and we need you as future leaders. Now, when I walk around the State House in Boston, how many of you have been to the State House in Boston? That's good showing. I want to see every hand up here next year. Get into the State House. See what the people's house, your house, is all about. But as I go in, one of the first stops along the way to my office is Nurses Hall, and in that room, front and center, above the stairway directly facing the offices of the Governor, Senate President, and Speaker of the House, sits Robert Reed's massive 1901 mural. It is between two smaller murals, one depicting Paul Revere's Midnight Ride and the other showing the Boston Tea Party, events that I'm confident are quite familiar to you. That one in the middle is much larger and more prominent. It portrays a man and a subject that is much less known today. That mural depicts attorney James T. Otis arguing on February 24, 1761, before the British Crown. He was opposing writs of assistance that allowed Britain's petty bureaucrats to enter colonists' homes and shops to search and seize taxable goods. Attorney Otis delivered a brilliant 5-hour-long oration, and I promise you I will not be here for 5 hours. But he did deliver a 5-hour oration at the old State House in downtown Boston, arguing that there is only a right to search with a proper warrant. Otis lost the case, but his argument is the basis of the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution. But more importantly, there was a young man, 25 years old at the time, watching that trial. That young man took copious notes and later wrote about it in his diary. Here is how he described what he witnessed that day. Then and there was the first scene of the first act of opposition to the arbitrary claims of Great Britain. Then and there, child independence was born. That young man was John Adams, and I don't think I need to remind you what happened 15 years later in July 1776, when Adams and Thomas Jefferson declared all of us free as the two authors of the Declaration of Independence. A government was born on that day. That's the mural under which I walk each day as I take my seat in the House of Representatives. And it provides a vivid context that combines my 37-year career as a trial lawyer and my 11 years as a legislator. In each job, the object is to seek justice. Now, as this program is sponsored by the American Legion, let me talk about some other monuments I pass in the State House on my way to my office each day. I take the route from the General Hooker statue at the main entrance, up the stairs towards Doric Hall, which contains portraits, statues, and military artifacts recalling many periods in Massachusetts history. Again, I pass Nurses Hall, which contains a statue in honor of women who served in war. It is then on to Memorial Hall, or the Hall of Flags, another special place where our Massachusetts soldiers are honored and remembered. It is in that room the troops present their flags and streamers to the governor, denoting the places they have been deployed in the past few years. And just past Memorial Hall, I look up to the stained glass window which shows the Massachusetts state seal. The seal contains the state military crest, a bent arm holding a broad sword aloft. The sword has its blade up to remind us that it was through the American Revolution that independence was won. And it contains our state motto, which reads, and this is for my Latin scholars in the room. How many of those do we have? All right, there's going to be a test. State motto reads, Anse petit placidum sub libertate quietum. Anybody want to tell us what that means? All the way in the back. What does it mean? Did you hear that? By the sword we seek peace, but peace only liberty. Give that man a new car. All of these things and symbols are tributes to our veterans who made all of this possible. Their dedication is extraordinary, and their courage has enabled us to enjoy the precious freedoms of our democracy. And it is their service has given me the opportunity to serve the great Commonwealth, and for you young men and women to participate here today. Now let's go back to that idea of justice I mentioned a few minutes ago. What is justice, you wonder? Well, several years ago, I was on a college tour with my daughter when I saw this. It was a 10-foot tall sculpture of a priest and human rights activist with his hands outstretched. And below his massive image, the inscription read, "What are you doing for justice?" That monument and question literally stopped me in my tracks. It was so direct and chilling. And as I stood there, I thought of what it must be like to confront that question every day. To get a better sense of that question and what it meant, I borrowed the definition from a plain-speaking 9-year-old elementary student from Virginia. And this is what she said about justice. Justice is equality. Everyone should be treated the same, no matter how tall you are, how big you are, no matter how old you are, no matter what your name is, no matter what your parents are, no matter what you look like, you should be treated the exact same way as everyone else. That's justice. And in crafting your legislation and doing your work in the courts this week, please keep in mind your obligation to do justice. Let me share with you a bit about my path getting to the legislature. I was a late bloomer when it came to reading. In fact, I didn't start reading books until later in my teen years. Prior to that, I survived on illustrated comic book versions of the classics. Today, I believe they are referred to as graphic novels. I did eventually establish some favorite books, which include William Golding's Temple of Gold, J.D. Salinger's Catcher in the Rye, and I Am Third by the football great Gale Sayers, all before your time. These were inspirational and educational at the same time. And since then, I have become a voracious reader, taking heed of President Harry Truman's admonition that not all readers become leaders, but all leaders must be readers. I'll also share with you that I was not a great test taker. Do we have any bad test takers in the room here today? All right. Well, we're in the Lonely Hearts Club, aren't we? My subpar score of 390 in English on the SAT led my guidance counselor to advise me to avoid exploring jobs that required the use of the spoken or written word. I didn't listen, did I? I wasn't discouraged. In fact, that year, thanks to a teacher who was genuinely interested in my progress, I landed work as a journalist and went on to become the editor of my college newspaper. And yes, I can assure you that the law and the legislature require the abundant use of words, speaking, and writing. While growing up in the 60s, we witnessed the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., and Robert F. Kennedy. They were horrific events, but I do recall receiving a poster on the anniversary of JFK's death that contained words that hang on my office wall to this day. It contained the prophetic words from JFK's inaugural address. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Those words challenged me and every American to contribute in some way to the public good and to see the importance of civic action and public service. Now, Watergate, which you probably study in school, that's happened in my teenage years, and in fact got me very interested in politics. Watching President Richard Nixon delivering a solemn goodbye to the staff on leaving the White House, as did the events leading up to his decision to resign, left an indelible mark on me. These events led me to seek my first political office at age 18, not far from where you folks are. I recall going door to door seeking signatures on my nomination papers and having people confuse me with the paperboy. Do you folks even know what a paperboy is? All right, thank God. I did win that election at 18, and I served for 3 years. I went on to study computer science at Worcester Polytechnic Institute. Remember what my guidance counselor advised me. And then to Bates College, where I studied sociology, and in 1984, I ended up in law school at Boston College. I'm also a musician. Started playing the cello as a second grader and then moved to guitar. I heard those words of the poet Oliver Wendell Holmes noting that most people go to their graves with the music still inside them. I didn't want to be one of them, and neither should you. I began my legal career in 1986, focused intently on being a trial lawyer and vindicating the rights and expectations of people who had been hurt in some fashion and as such had been robbed of meaningful opportunities, seeking justice on their behalf. But I will share with you that it was the events of September 11th, 2001 that served as a wake-up call for me to remember my public service obligations, to pay back for all I had been given, and to pay it forward for those seeking a chance. In 2001, I sought a seat on my local school committee, and coming from the community where Horace Mann was born, and as a parent of 3 children, I thought that was the best way to get involved. I served 10 years on that committee. I took a seat on the Franklin Town Council for 2 years and then ran for state representative in 2012, and that's the seat that I hold to this day. It's been a good run, a great way to contribute to the public good, and a good lesson in how to get things done. In speaking about public service and civic engagement, let's think together about what government really is. That public education that you got from kindergarten to 12th grade has been a government function since the days of Horace Mann. The roads, bridges, a public transportation system that got you here today are part of the infrastructure put in place by your government. The libraries, parks, and recreational facilities that you rely on are government services. Our public safety systems, police, fire, military, and homeland security are things we entrust to government. The clean air and safe drinking water you consume and rely upon is the result of government action at work. Our prisons and courts administer justice as part of the third branch of government on a daily basis. And healthcare, public health, and human services are some of the social safety nets provided by your government. Now, I like to think of government as taming rivers. And the best example of what I mean by that is the Hoover Dam. Now, how many of you have been out to the Black Canyon of the Colorado River on the border between Arizona and Nevada? How many have been out to visit that beautiful Hoover Dam? A few of you. Well, take a chance if you get an opportunity. The Colorado River runs a 1,400-mile course from the snow-laden Rockies in Colorado and Wyoming and drains 1/12 of the total land area of the contiguous United States. Up until 1935, that Colorado River often rose above its banks and flooded hundreds of square miles along its border. It would annually flood and pour unchecked into the valley, destroying farms, homes, communities, and everything in its path. The cycle of flood and drought became untenable. The place was unlivable, and something had to be done to tame that river. And since about 1900, the Black Canyon and nearby Boulder Canyon had been investigated for their potential to support a dam that would control floods, provide irrigation water, and produce hydroelectric power. Now consider that the Colorado River drainage basin includes 7 states and affects water rights in each of them. To figure out what to do and to make equitable allotments, we turned to government to provide a solution. And in 1928, Congress passed the Boulder Canyon Project Act and authorized $165 million for the construction of a dam. Built during the Depression, it provided jobs and created a new planned city known as Boulder City. And the dam opened on September 30th of 1935. With its opening, the flooding and havoc that the old river produced was gone. In fact, Hoover Dam fulfilled the goal of disseminating the once wild Colorado River and fueled the development of such major cities as Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and Phoenix. That dam is capable of irrigating 2 million acres. Its 17 turbines generate enough electricity to power 1.3 million homes. And the dam was designated a National Historic Landmark in 1985 and one of America's 7 modern civil engineering wonders in 1994. It receives some 7 million visitors annually. Not too many from this room, but we'll change that. The dam also created Lake Mead, a recreation area that holds 29 million feet of water, 550 feet deep in some places and 110 miles long. That's a man-made lake, and it draws 10 million visitors annually. Our government was the only thing that could tame that river. And America has tamed other rivers with historical government actions such as the passage of the Social Security Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Interstate Highway System, the Panama Canal, the Internet, the Sherman Antitrust Act, and the Affordable Care Act. And here are some of the rivers that we're attempting to tame today: climate change and global warming, the production of clean and renewable energy, education, a pandemic which required widespread vaccine distribution and development, unemployment, student loan debt, gun violence, health care, substance use disorder, equity in policing, education and opportunity, and so many more. Government tames many rivers and takes an active role in clearing the path for ordinary people to get ahead. Now, last year I took a trade mission to Denmark focused on renewable energy and the ability of offshore wind to power our future. And earlier this year I traveled to Portugal to see what they were doing with onshore wind. And those trips helped inform my work as a member of the committee that passed 2 landmark climate bills, one in 2021 and one in 2022, and encouraged greater use of offshore wind and other renewable sources of energy to curb the effects of climate change. As a result of these efforts, I can report that Massachusetts will have the first commercial-scale offshore wind farm in the United States, and that wind farm will produce power for 400,000 homes by the end of this year. And I can assure you that more is on the way because we have enough offshore wind capacity to power every home and business in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and I'll tell you, that's exactly what we aim to do. Now this week, you folks are going to take on active government roles and tame your own rivers. And this program is designed to immerse you in the process. As you begin this process, I ask you to think about this line attributed to Abraham Lincoln and highlighted in the 2012 movie about him. Abraham Lincoln is talking with Thaddeus Stevens about slavery. And at one point, Stevens says to Lincoln, he says, "You know that the inner compass should direct the soul toward justice as ossified in white men and women, north and south, unto utter uselessness through tolerating the evil of slavery." And Lincoln responds in a lesson for us all on how to govern. Abraham Lincoln said, "A compass I learned when I was surveying, it'll point you true north from where you were standing, but it's got no advice about the swamps and deserts and chasms you'll encounter along the way. If, in pursuit of your destination, you plunge ahead, heedless of obstacles, and achieve nothing more than to sink in a swamp, what's the use of knowing true north? In governing, you must listen to others, develop a sense of empathy, and be open to other ways of reaching true north. It's the art of compromise, and it's the best way to tame rivers. As legislators this week, remember you are problem solvers, and you should think of yourself as musicians in a band or an orchestra. In a band or orchestra, the musicians work together, and their instruments complement the others and deliver a most beautiful sound, a unified sound. This week, be a part of the great orchestra where you and those around you are the musicians. Let your music create sounds that resonate, harmonize, and glorify the art of working together. Let it be an occasion to expand your moral imaginations, to listen to each other more carefully, to sharpen your instincts for empathy, and remind yourselves of all the ways our hopes and dreams are bound together. If everyone went about their business the way musicians do, where your actions complement others, think about how different this world could be. Finally, let me leave you with a message from Pope Francis on public service. Pope Francis said, "Every man, every woman who has to take up the service of government must ask themselves two questions. First, do I love my people in order to serve them better? And second, am I humble and do I listen to everybody, to diverse opinions, in order to choose the best path?" My hope is that your answers are a resounding yes to each of those questions. Thank you so much for your attention this morning. Good luck this week, and please keep in touch. Now, I know we have some time for questions, and I know some microphones are set up in the center aisle, and we will get you to your lunch as soon as possible, but if you've got questions, come on up. We already gave away one new car. We have a few more.
As both a lawyer and a legislator, how do you walk the line between fighting for an issue and compromising on it?
Well, as a lawyer, you have to be a zealous advocate for your client. And you want to fight for that client to get the ability to achieve justice. As a legislator, we set up the laws that would apply in certain situations involving individuals who may run afoul of the law. And there are 200 members of the Great and General Court. And there are 200 members who each of them have different ideas about the correct path to create that law. And if you're going to get anything done, you have to have that ability to compromise. I don't say give up on what you believe in your heart. If you can't support something from the heart, don't support it. But work your hardest to achieve a compromise with whoever you are working with. And if you want to see a genuine example of compromise, look at what we did on the climate bill in 2022. We finally got the governor to sign it in August of 2022, but that was not before much compromise and much talking among the sides. And if you go to my website, which is jeffreyroy.com, you'll actually see a speech where I talk about how important it is to compromise. And luckily, we were able to get it done last year. And I think you, who are relying on us to reach our goals of net zero by 2050, are happy that we did get that compromise in place and move us closer to that goal.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you can step right up to that microphone. There you go. Now I can hear you.
Okay. I just have a quick question about the offshore wind turbines.
Yes.
Where are those located, and do you know how those work exactly? Or?
Absolutely. So I am absolutely thrilled that you asked those questions. Right now, the first farm is 20 miles south of Martha's Vineyard, out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, where there are some of the most robust winds in the entire contiguous United States. The first set of turbines will be 62 and will power 400,000 homes. They will spin with the wind. They will generate energy. A cable will bring in that energy into land. For the first round of turbines, they're going to be hooked up at Covell's Beach in Barnstable. Anybody from Barnstable here? Excellent. Well, you probably saw that construction going on right at the beach, and Barnstable got a whole slew of new roads and sewage system as a result of that construction. So that's the first of 7 lease areas that are under construction out in that way. There'll be hundreds of turbines by around 2035.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In your career as a public servant, have you ever encountered a genuine moral dilemma, and how did you navigate it?
Not once, many times. You're called upon to take tough votes almost every day. Perfect example, I went to legislative boot camp in 2012, December of 2012. And that's where you go. We went out to UMass Amherst. We met with other legislators, staff folks, to really learn what the job of a legislator is and how you get a bill to become law. And I left after that week out at UMass Amherst very excited about what we were going to do and some of the issues that we were going to work on. And I was wondering what was going to be the main issue for the first session. And it was December 14 of 2012 that was the last day of that session. I got into my car around noontime and began the journey back from Amherst to Franklin, turned on the radio, and had learned that the shooting had occurred at the Newtown Elementary School in Connecticut. And I immediately knew what the top issue was going to be that day. And balancing the rights under the Second Amendment with the rights of citizens to go about their daily lives in safety, and students who can go to a school and not feel threatened. I mean, I can just imagine the drills that you folks have had to go through in some of your schools. And dealing with the arguments on those particular issues were very, very compelling, very difficult, and you take an issue such as abortion rights and what the Supreme Court did to take away the abortion rights from 1974, 50 years of law, also involved some difficult moral votes and questions. We legalized gay marriage 20 years ago. Profound moral code. Every single day we face these types of issues, and it's some of the most difficult tasks because you're not going to please everyone. There are different views on every single issue, and you know, we have to be mindful of that. And you cast your vote based on your best judgment and your heart.
Thank you.
You got it.
What is a recent decision that you've had that has gone against the popularity of a specific group in the Commonwealth, but has done it in the best interest of the Commonwealth as a whole?
Try that one again.
What is a specific decision that you have made that has gone against the more selected group of people in the Commonwealth, but has done in the best interest of the Commonwealth as a whole?
Well, I'll say that many of the climate change issues that we face, we still have a few climate change deniers out there in the world. Thankfully, they're in the minority here in 2023. So that's definitely something that would be out there along that decision. And I will tell you that many of the pieces that we adopted in that legislation were not terribly popular pieces. For example, there was a pilot program to ban the use of fossil fuels in new construction in Massachusetts. A wildly unpopular idea with folks in the fossil fuel industry and people who rely on natural gas. For example, on a day like today, 55 to 60% of the energy in Massachusetts is derived from natural gas. And here we are faced with the prospect of flipping the switch. And you have to ask yourself, if we flip that switch today, which we could do, and ban natural gas, what are the 55 to 60% of the population going to do? Because I'm sure that when you get to your homes or you get to your dorm rooms and you flip that switch on, you expect that light to go on. Or when you get home and you want to watch television or play an Xbox or whatever games you're playing and you turn that switch, you want it to go on. So we have to make difficult decisions, and I will say that particular climate bill and some of the provisions in there were not popular, but are getting us on the road to a clean energy future so that we can save the world and give you folks an opportunity to enjoy it as much as we did.
As someone that has held like many positions, you know, I find what was like the factors that helped narrow down what you wanted to do in the future?
Well, oddly enough, I always wanted to be a lawyer since I was 16 years old. It wasn't the easiest path getting there, but I had it in my mind that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something that was profoundly meaningful, gave me an opportunity to give back, and gave me an opportunity to work on the question of justice. Some of it is timing, a lot of hard work, never giving up, persevering, and then opportunities. When the state representative job became available, the sitting state representative was a good friend of mine, and I never wanted to challenge him. But when he decided to step down, I had jumped into the race immediately, and that was an opportunity that was thrust in front of me at that time. But I can tell you, after I had been a lawyer for 28 years before I got into the legislature, I can tell you that making the law is a lot more fun than it is fighting about the law. And this is the best job I've ever had in my life. And I get to meet with folks like you on a regular basis. So. So thank you all. Great questions. I'll hang around for a few minutes if those who did not get answers to their questions and you still want to pose them, I'll be right over on the side. So thank you all. Have a great week and work hard.
Thank you.